My name is Vinny Gupta. I am the president of UC Easy College Admissions Academy. I am physically based in Cupertino, California. And along with me, I've got one of our experts, and another one would join later, Mr. David Fenor, who's been with admissions at the University of California for 28 years. So awesome expert that we have today. I'll introduce him in a second. The topic at hand today is what is the impact of the decision of the University of California for their decision to not consider SAT or ACT scores anymore in their undergraduate applications process. That's what we're going to talk about. Let me introduce our speaker or expert number one for today, Mr. David Fenor. Since the topic today is on the impact of UC's policy about test scores, no one better than Mr. Fenor to talk about this topic. He worked inside UC admissions for 28 years. So he's seen the entire progress. So when you hear him, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm actually going to take a lot of notes myself because I've seen his slides before. There is so much that I didn't know. So over the last 28 years, he's read tens of thousands of applications for undergraduate admissions, freshmen, as well as for transfer students. He's also done college admissions counseling at a competitive high school. So he knows how to work with students in a one-on-one setting. Mr. Fenor, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Thank you, Vinny. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking time out of your weekend to join us today. As the topic it implies, the implications of UC going test blind, UC admissions has changed. That's actually not unusual, but it has changed in a way that impacts many people and provides a lot of concern for families and students as they're moving forward through the current admissions process. I have to admit that despite my 28 years of experience in UC admissions, my time with UC Easy has allowed me to interact with some very highly qualified counselors who come from different backgrounds. And we talk and prepare each other so that we can counsel and advise students on a lot of nuanced information that we would never get to in a brief presentation like this. So I want to provide some context first, because admissions for UC, it will all be all about context, as you'll see as we move to the end. But the current UC policy is that they will not be using any kind of SAT or test scores for admissions decisions or Regents and Chancellor scholarships, which are the biggest merit scholarships offered in the University of California. Again, this is the current policy.
Thank you.
So again, I want to start, and I'm going to move through these pretty quickly. Hopefully you can read the text on some of these, but just overall in the United States, currently almost 50% of high school graduates are graduating and achieving GPAs of 4.0 or higher. So everyone should understand that there is a lot of competition out there. Now, how those GPAs are calculated varies significantly, but I'm not going to get into that minutia here. That information is per the Department of Education from 2019. The next two points here, the students' collegiate performance levels out after 5 AP courses. And that is from College Board President David Coleman in the spring of 2019 at a conference to admissions professionals and counselors. He also admits that 65% of students have SAT scores that accurately reflect high school achievement. And that means as an admissions officer is looking at a student's course pattern, their grades, the SAT score usually goes, yeah, that would be about right. 2/3. Again, historically, I can't even tell you how many studies have been done by a wide range of academicians throughout time that high school grades and course rigor always most accurately reflect how a student's engagement, discipline, excuse me, and inquisitive will be transposed at the university level. A quick history of the SAT. The SAT actually was first offered to high school students in 1926. Now, it was offered as an adaptation of the Army Alpha Test for IQ. Over time, it got changed to be called the Scholastic Aptitude Test so that the SAT could focus on high school age students. It did not take long for people throughout academia, throughout the country, to argue that it really didn't test aptitude. So several years later, they changed the name to the Scholastic Achievement Test. It only took about a year and a half for the same people in academia to say that the exam was not really testing achievement, because a student who starts with less and achieves greatly still may not achieve to the level of someone who had a greater base start. And now it's just referred to as the SAT, which just means SAT. It doesn't stand for achievement, aptitude, or anything else. I will tell you that the people at College Board will tell you that the goal of the SAT is to determine a student's success in the first year of college. So as you can see, throughout time, there have been several scoring and format changes. There was a time where there were 3 parts and a 24-point total. The University of California used to require an additional writing piece. Not everybody did. So changes to the SAT are not really something new. Really quickly about the University of California as a quick background. In 1960, the state of California developed what they called the Master Plan for Higher Education. And it was developed for several reasons. One was the growing population. One was to allow for finances to be allocated appropriately. And in the California Master Plan, it is decided, it is still true, that University of California is to select from the top 1/8 or 12.5% of the graduating high schools every year. So over time, there have been changes to UC admissions policies to best reflect that 12.5%. Within the University of California itself, the way admissions policies are set is through something they call shared governance. BORS stands for the Board of Admissions and Relations with Schools. Now, BORS has a faculty representative from each of the campuses to determine all policies related to admissions and financial aid. At each individual campus, the Faculty Senate has a member or a committee called CAFA or something similar. That stands for the Committee on Admissions and Financial Aid. One of the members, typically the chair of a CAFA, is the member at BORS for UC. So each campus at the UC level, BORS decides the policies. CAFA then decides how those policies will be implemented at each individual campus. Currently, BORS has agreed to 13 specific criterion that will be used in comprehensive review. Comprehensive review means that at every UC campus, at every single one at the undergraduate level, these 13 criteria are implemented to review every single application. Holistic review is one way that those campuses fulfill comprehensive review. There are still some campuses who will do a bit of more statistical review with GPA courses and things that becomes a numerical score. Holistic review means everything is considered equally and as a whole. So again, I'm going to go pretty quickly through these. These are going to be a series of slides that list the current 13 selection criterion approved by BORS and used at each campus. As you're going to see, from this slide, everything is the same. Application evaluation readers are provided with multiple GPAs and data on every high school in the state. So that as they look at academic information, that they can do it within the context of the academic opportunities for each applicant. Again, it's not just which courses, which GPA, things like that. They're also looking for academic trends. Is a student on the rise? Have they stumbled? Did they stumble in a specific subject? What are their strengths? So they're taking into context not only the academic opportunities and the rigor and the achievement, they're also trying to determine the trend to see, is this a student that we would like to have based on academics? Now, if you notice, there's 13 criterion, and now 9 of them are specifically geared towards academics. You get to the next one, and this is where the university again begins to bring a little bit more of what I call soft skills, talents. This allows the university to not build a class of well-rounded students, but to build well-rounded classes. Diversity, special talents, athletes, there's a lot that goes into this slide. So again, a chance to do something beyond academics. This slide talks about academic achievement through a personal context. So they already know, they calculate multiple GPAs for each student at their high school in the context historically from students from that school. They know about the number of AP and honors courses. They know all this stuff. The university, they data warehouse. But here now they're saying, okay, within the context of the school, we understand the academics. Now here, what about within the student's personal context? Again, you can see the demographic diversity is important with that bottom one. They are the University of California. They would like to enroll students from all over the state of California, as taxpayers from all over are supporting them. But this is where students look for multi-dimensional students. This will include international and out-of-state students as well. So what's missing in the 13 criterion? Well, as you know, in 2009, California voters, or excuse me, Proposition 209 was approved by California voters in 1996. And that means that in making an admissions decision, race, gender, and ethnicity are not included. If you ever get on the inside of a university admissions office, if a reader or an evaluator sees this information, they must redact making a decision on the student. That information is important later for reporting information to the state and the federal government. It's important for making housing assignments. There are scholarships that are very specific, oftentimes specifically to gender or ethnicity or race. So they do have to collect this information for a lot of reasons, but it is not seen by a reader or an evaluator when making a decision. And of course, we can say that university dropped the policy, but quite honestly, late last year, by court order, UC was mandated to not use SAT and ACT scores. I would like to say that, for many years, UC has been talking about how to use this, how are scores used. They have been historically a system that has great sway because of the number of applications and the population with the College Board. Many students used to not take the writing piece that university required. And so the number of applications became limited to the university because of that. This court order, though, came in light of COVID because of students who were disabled and said, even if I chose to go out to take an exam, I am so restricted based on a mobility challenge or something like that. I will add that NCAA, where the National Collegiate Athletic Association still currently, although that may change soon, requires an SAT or an ACT score for athletic eligibility. So there are technically some students at UC who may require the SAT or ACT. Well, here's what we know. For fall 22 enrollment, all UCs are test blind. Now, when the court order came, or before the court order came down, the University of California had already said that they would be test blind for fall 21 and fall 22 enrollment. They would go test blind in 23 and 24 while developing an exam that they would hope could be fair and equal and provide equity. So truly for the next 3 or 4 years, and based on the court order, the university will be test blind. Again, that means they will not be used for admissions. and regents and chancellor scholarships. But a student who uses a score can use a score for placement for some merit scholarships, and that would be done after. And again, they could be used for course placement when you get to UC, waive you from a freshman writing or something like that. AP exams are still going to be considered in holistic review for students who take AP courses and submit those scores. And the subject tests have been eliminated. And I put the asterisk there because for the fall of 22 admissions enrollment cohort, if the student has taken a subject exam prior to today, they could still submit that and use it for waiver of an A through G subject requirement. This happens a lot in languages and things like that. But those exams are no longer going to be offered, so don't try to take them to waive a subject, but they are still technically all been eliminated. They still could be used by a very small portion of UC applicants. So here's what we're really about today, right? There's the context. That's how all this works. That's the history. The ground has been changing over time. It's one of the reasons I really appreciate working with the highly dedicated professionals at UC Easy, the other counselors. They know about these changes. And so when we talk about the nuances of what a student needs to do to move forward in the best light possible, I always talk about academic curiosity. The University of California uses that language a lot. They want students to take the most challenging high school courses available to them, but achieve at a high level. So the student who's taking, let's say, 4 AP courses and maybe getting a C grade is not necessarily what the university is looking for. They're looking for students who have learned how to learn. They see that through progress in courses, students whose GPA is on the rise. They're looking for students who have explored curriculum or in depth the areas that they love. Most importantly, they're looking for effective communicators, whether in written or verbal form. Again, diving into the activities, a holistic review of all of these things, the soft skills the students should enhance to become strong college applicants and best person are students who do think outside of the box. They're doing and taking advantage of opportunities to develop themselves personally. The better person they'll be, the better applicant they can be. They are looking for leadership, which comes in many, many forms. They're looking for commitment. They're looking for students who are community-minded, whether that community is their home, maybe taking care of younger siblings, maybe in their church community, maybe in their school community, or maybe in their broader community of their city or their county, maybe statewide, and of course, students who may be doing things nationally or internationally as well. They really look for the quality of a student's commitment and interaction and engagement, more so than the student who's just trying to check off every box. I will add that our UC Easy 8 through 11 program really provides excellent services to develop these skills and provide the nuance that will make for successful college applicants. Again, how do you tell your story? You develop your writing skills. A big part of the University of California application isn't just putting in your courses, grades, etc., but it's also telling them about who you are through the options to list your activities, awards, achievements, extracurriculars. They're looking for you respond to 4 personal insight questions, which are not essays, they're questions. You answer the question and you provide details and context from what makes you different. They are limited in word count. They're looking for people to be precise, to provide information. Again, this is not just about you. They also want to know how well you collaborate. Can you work well with others? Have you ever stumbled, and how did you pick yourself up? What did you gain from the experience? But mostly they're just trying to understand you in context. So tell your story. Don't wordsmith it to death. You don't want to lose the student voice. They look for the student's voice, not a perfectly crafted essay. UCS, again, UC Easy counselors, they're experts at guiding students through this process. Some final thoughts. Again, if you remember, 9 of the 13 criteria really do focus on academics, but they focus on them in a different way. They don't focus on the one experience of one sitting of an examination. They're looking at students who've explored curriculum. They've challenged themselves either broadly or sometimes in depth if they have an area of interest or expertise. That is typically shown through their extracurricular activities as well. They look for students who may have limited opportunities and how they seek others outside of school. Our UC Easy team has experts on providing opportunities and options that might best fit a student, say, in the summertime. So again, there's a lot that we can offer and share. Team learning is something else that they look for. So focus on developing those soft skills that allow you to be an effective communicator, a collaborator, a leader, that they show a commitment to yourself, your team, your passions, and grow yourself personally. If you're trying to make decisions so that you can check every box in an application, and you're trying to do things and pursue things that you feel a University of California or other admissions office wants, you're being a bit misguided. Become the best person you can. Again, my final thoughts are, as you can see, there's a lot of factors you can't control. Will the UC bring back a new exam? Will it be required? You can't control that. Will the A through G requirements and things change? How they calculate GPA? There's so much you can't control. Control what you can. Begin preparing now. The sooner you start doing this, starting in 8th and 9th grade is a great time to begin understanding academic opportunities and exploration. The one thing I would tell every student all the time, just do your best. No one is ever going to ask you to do more. Just do your best. Think about, as you take on activities, how that presents you in a context, the context you want to present to the University of California. The admissions director at UCLA is one who shares a line that I've been using and UC administrators and admissions people have been using for years. University of California is looking for excellence, not perfection. The student who's got the pristine record hasn't maybe understood how to work through a challenge. And the University of California would like to know if you've had to do that. Because if you hit that challenge for the first time when you're a student, the results may not be what they want. Also remember that admissions officers, they don't judge you. When you fill out an application, they're just trying and they have a desire to understand who you are. So again, provide that context. That will let them know how you set yourself apart. When did you ask for help? UC Easy, again, can provide services that can help you with all these. And then think about how you tell your story holistically. I'm going to turn over to Vinny and Karen for the question and answer section.
Excellent, David. A lot of high quality information. And thank you for covering so much in a short time. As we discussed, let's leave a lot of time for questions that our guest today will have. And before we jump into the question and answers, I want to welcome Karen Rao, who is the director of our program for 11th and 12th graders, also called the College Admissions Program. She is the lead counselor as well. She brings to the table more than 20 years of experience in college admissions counseling at public and private high schools across the country. She also happens to be an external reader of applications for the University of California. So with that, Karen, welcome. Do you want to say something to your audience and then get us started with the Q&A?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm recovering from my second vaccine shot, if you're wondering why I'm feeling under the weather. But I'm good. I'm good to go for today. And it sounds like you had a lot of great information from David, who has so much experience in the UC system itself. So you guys are in great hands. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the questions. What are ways to prove your leadership skills?
On an application, it's one thing to be able to say that you were the president of your high school. However, I wonder how many of you know exactly how many high schools there are in the state of California alone. So you would be one of 1,500, 2,000. What they really want to know is not just that you were the president, but what kinds of activities or leadership did you show within the school that made significant changes within the community, that impacted the school's presence in the community. So again, it's not just a title, I was the president, the vice. What did you do? They're looking for impact. That will come through in your brief descriptions in the extracurricular awards honor section. It could certainly be a topic that you write about in a personal insight question response. But I really, more than that, I encourage students to think about different forms of leadership. So for example, if both of your parents are working or they're working from home in the current COVID environment and you have younger siblings, it's a leadership role within your home to go and take care, help your younger siblings with homework, maybe take them out for a walk, give your parents a chance to breathe, think about making dinner, do their job. That is a form of leadership that many students don't understand. An example I frequently give is and I'm not a football fan, so if I don't get this quite right, I apologize. But most people look at a football game and they go, oh, there's the quarterback. He calls the plays, he throws the pass, right? He's got all this leadership. But if you really watch a football game, as they break the huddle and they come to the line, it's the center, the guy who hikes the ball, hands the ball to the quarterback, who's actually looking at all the defense. He's looking, and then he's communicating with his teammates on the line who protect the quarterback so he can then run the play that's assigned. That person on the line who probably never gets he gets his number called when he's penalized for something, but he's demonstrating leadership on every single play and leadership that is key to the success of that team. So again, I think leadership comes in many different ways. Think about how you're a leader and how you become a leader. It's not just a title.
That was a great explanation and a good football analogy too. And so students will have the opportunity to list their leadership skills in their activities as well as in their personal insight questions. So you can actually elaborate on that as well. Next question, when it comes to striving for rigor, how do the UCs look at a student who is in the process of challenging themselves via APs, but ends up with a few Bs in those AP courses?
Boy, if you went back to the first 9 bullet items of the 13 criterion, it's not a simple answer because, again, within the context of the school, the student appears to be challenged. I oftentimes have to remind students and parents that when you look at a typical A through F grading scale, A means excellence, B means very good, C means average, D is below average, and we don't really want to talk about failing. But very good means very good. And if you're doing that in a challenging class, typically, if it's an AP or a higher level IB course, it can be a designated honors. It will depend on the school. It will be given an additional grade bump. Now, if the student is taking 5 APs and getting all Bs, that's where I would say, what University of California is looking for students who have that understanding of their curiosity and their potential, and maybe should try to drop to 3 or 4 APs or an honors and increase those B grades to A and B grades. Because it's not just the rigor and the challenge, it's also the high achieving within that. Sometimes the student's getting Bs because they're taking care of their siblings. They're trying to do schoolwork at home in a remote environment, and it's difficult. But again, they're looking at which grades of those, or which courses do those grades come from? What major is that student applying to? Are those grades improving over time? Are they staying steady? There's a lot of ways that they look at grades, and there's a lot of ways that they calculate GPA. Again, if you feel you're doing your best and you are achieving and you are learning, you are in the right curriculum.
Awesome. Let's hit this one. In the sense that progress is something the UCs seek, Will someone who did poorly in grade 9 but did excellent in grade 11, will they have a better chance than someone who did consistently well over all of the grades?
I'd really want to know a little bit more about grade 10 in that question, to be honest with you. Because again, there's so many factors here. I don't know that there's a right answer. They are interested in students who are just solid across the board. But a student who may have stumbled for whatever reason, maybe they attended a school for the first time, father's in the military, they transferred to a new school, they struggled in that new environment. Then they went to another school and they got better, the environment was better, and then they got used to it by staying there for a second year. So again, this is where the context that a student provides through personal insight questions, through activities and honors, showing the schools that they've attended and the courses and grades that they've achieved is all put in context. I don't know that there's a set answer to that. Context for the University of California, you will hear it all the time. Context is everything. You know, I will say I have so much admiration for public school counselors, but their caseloads are immense. There is no way they could have the kind of one-on-one experience that you're going to get where a UC Easy counselor can sit with you and talk about, well, what was going on in your life? What were you doing? Was there a death in the... All those things provide context for whether straight across the board, solid performance or increase happens. And for what reasons do they happen? And once we get to know you as an individual, then we can help frame how you present yourself in the best light in an application. And so I hope that's a reasonable answer to that, because again, it's all about context.
Yeah, and there's actually a section on the application where you can explain anything you want, basically, especially based on your academics as well. And with the UCs, they are just looking at grade 10 and 11 for your GPA, as well as the courses you're enrolled in as a senior. Vinny, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add here that because a lot of our guests today are Indian Americans or in other similar immigrant communities, that this context stuff becomes really important because some of these students may have migrated to the United States, say in 10th grade or in 6th grade. So acclimatizing to a new country, to a new system, parents trying to familiarize themselves, there is a lot of context in there.
Absolutely.
All right. For students seeking admissions to the UCs in STEM subjects, how relevant are the AP exams and AP courses and grades in these STEM subjects now? Is science and math aptitude still used to judge admissions?
First of all, you know, if a student, there's so many STEM fields now that I think that, you know, a student who's going into STEM could be looking at a lot of things. And in fact, now the new big term is STEAM, which includes arts. There's a lot of school, you know, certainly a student who takes, in my opinion, and based on what happened throughout my UC career, is any student who takes an AP course should take and report the AP score. And I know that there's a lot of people who say, well, wait, I only got a 2. I was really sick that. You should report it. You'll have a chance to explain it. As Karen mentioned, there's a couple of places in the UC application, one under academics where you have a chance to explain, I couldn't take AP chemistry in the senior year because it conflicted with AP physics. Scheduling wise, I just couldn't take it. I got my second COVID vaccine the day before my AP exam in biology, and I didn't perform as well because I wasn't feeling what there are many things that you can explain. You don't make an excuse, but the UC by and large sees an AP exam as the final for the AP class. And students who don't report AP scores, regardless of what it is, what are you telling them? I'm going to take your classes, but I'm not going to take the final. So I would say that how they use those scores, if you go back to those first 9 items, and by the way, those 13 criterion that are used are easily found on the University of California website. So you can go back and you can see that there is no perfect answer, if only because the 13 criterion are viewed differently at each campus. They can be weighted differently. They can be looked at. They can be done by major. So again, even within STEM, That could be anything from biology to electrical engineering. And those courses in preparation are viewed differently for each of those majors.
Yeah, and then one thing I was going to add, in reviewing applications for the UC system, everything can only benefit you. So when you're scoring an application itself, we're not sitting there with a red pen like subtract, subtract, subtract. We're only adding. So if you share all of your information, if you did poorly on an AP exam, it just wouldn't add anything to your application. It's just never going to subtract from it. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
Karen, I believe it was on my last slide that the university readers, and I'm sure you know this as someone, they're not judging a student. So that's why they don't penalize you. Don't worry about being penalized. They're not judging you. They're trying to understand you and what you've been through personally. Have you immigrated from another country? When did you immigrate? Do your parents educated? All these things that can go into understanding who you are, what you've been through personally, and then how you've managed to improve yourself within the context of the school or schools and the opportunities provided to prepare for college. And so there, I agree with you. You're never going to get dinged. Don't worry about being dinged. They're just trying to understand. And so what is nuanced is, how do you present yourself and how do you present your story? And again, I have so much respect for public high school counselors, but they don't have time to know you to do this.
So we do have a couple of questions about the 12.5% statistic. So what does the 12.5% statistic exactly mean, David? And don't different UCs have different acceptance rates?
So remember, that's the California Master Plan theory that a UC admits from the top 12.5% of the graduates in the state. If you look on their website, you'll see that they kind of break that down into two ways. And again, because they're the University of California and want to represent students and families from across the state, each school will have applicants divided and determined who are in the top 9% of the graduates from their high school. And those students are automatically qualified for admission to the University of California. That does not mean you will get into the campus of your first choice. It does not mean you'll get into the major of your first choice. And it does not mean you'll be offered admission necessarily for the fall. It could be an off quarter like winter or spring, depending. But every University of California president to date has met the goal of offering admission to every qualified student. So if you're not in the top 9% as determined by UC, from your school, they also say that here's the minimum required A through G courses that must be completed. The GPA for UC is calculated from 10th and 11th grade grades. Technically, that includes summer after 9th and summer after 11th. And they will then qualify students with GPA and courses to fill out what should be the remaining 12.5% from the state. Every few years, there is a new, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called, but they actually test to see. They look at applicants, they say, oh, and many years ago, the university was at like 17%. So they've adjusted some GPAs, they've adjusted some courses and things like that. So 9% from each school determined by UC, and students who do not make that 9% can still be qualified in the 12.5% based on courses and grades. I hope that makes sense.
I think that was a great explanation. And if you mentioned the top 9%, someone is asking, is this valid for both public and private schools as well?
It is valid for every school that chooses to participate.
Looks like it's about 12 o'clock right now. Let's do one more. Do they look at weighted GPA or unweighted GPA?
Yes. So GPAs are something that are difficult to talk about. Every student who applies will have a UC GPA calculated from those 10th and 11th grade courses. They will be given an additional honors grade point for courses that are approved and they received a grade of C or better. There is a maximum number of 4 years or 8 semesters, no more than 2 years and 4 semesters from the 10th grade. So the UC GPA, when you see data, that is the GPA that they use. When you start reading applications, at least in my experiences, different campuses do it differently, but I was presented with up to 10 different GPAs for an applicant at times. One would be the UC GPA. One would be an unweighted GPA. One would be a fully weighted, giving all the honors grade points. One would be the GPA that major, if it was a specific major, engineering, biology, in those courses, and it would be in different forms. And then you would see a GPA of average admitted students from that high school previously. There was just, I'm just going to say it's the University of California. They're about research and theory. They love data, and they throw data at you. And so it isn't one GPA. So that's why I try to tell students not to worry about GPA. Focus on your intellectual curiosity. Do the best you can, achieve at a high level in as many challenging courses as possible, and let the chips fall there. You can't control which GPA they will use or how they will calculate it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you soon at another UC Easy event. For now, please stay safe and hope to see you soon. Take care.